Hello and welcome to another episode of GP Gaming. And for this episode, I'm playing Battlefield again. And I'm playing with the FAL. Let me tell you a little bit about the FAL, alright? This is some info taken from Wikipedia, so I can't take credit for it. But the FAL, or known as the Fusil Automatique Léger, which means the light automatic rifle in French, I guess, or FAL, is a semi-automatic selective fire battle rifle produced by the Belgian armaments manufacturer Fabrique Nationale de Herstal, FNH. They also make the PN90, by the way. So during the Cold War, it was adopted by many NATO countries, with the notable exception of the United States. The FAL is one of the most widely used rifles in history, having been used by more than 90 countries. By modern standards, one disadvantage of the FAL is the amount of work which goes into machining the complex receiver, bolt, and carrier. Some theorize that the movement of the tilting bolt mechanism tends to return differently with each shot, affecting inherent accuracy of the weapon, but this is proven to be false. The FAL's receiver is machined, while most other modern military rifles use quicker stamping or casting techniques. Modern FALs have many improvements over those produced by FN and others in the mid-20th century. The FN FAL has relatively light recoil due to the gas system being able to be tuned via regulator in fore-end of the rifle, which allowed for excess gas which would simply increase recoil to bleed off. In fully automatic mode, however, the shooter receives considerable abuse from recoil, and the weapon climbs off target quickly, making automatic fire only of marginal effectiveness. Now, I found this to be the case as well, considering recoil. Pretty much all battle rifles in the game suffer from considerable recoil, even with the best attachments to mitigate this, but they can be tamed if you tap fire. Now, as far as the FAL goes, this is probably my favorite battle rifle in Battlefield Hardline. I compare it pretty much to the Scar H. Now, this is because they have similar stats, and the FAL is a criminal-only weapon, while the Scar H is a police-only weapon. But when I'm playing as the criminals and able to use the FAL, there's a part of me that just feels a lot more relieved that I get to use this weapon. And I think it's because, now you'll see on screen the stats here, but I really think that I'm able to tame the recoil of the FAL much better than I am the Scar H. Now, when I say this, I don't mean by 100% or anything crazy, but it is noticeable, at least for me. See, I like to engage enemies for the most part at a sort of like close medium to medium range, and any weapon that you use to engage enemies at that sort of range, you really need to have the weapon to have a lot of control. Control, more than range, I think, I've found, is more important when able to land shots on your target. Now, you can have a weapon that the range is fairly minimal but has great control. You can still hit an enemy at medium to longer range distances. You just have to compensate for the bullet drop. But I think it's a lot easier to hit a target with a gun like that than, say, the opposite, where you have good range but poor control. The FAL is no exception when it comes to needing to tame the recoil. I like to run with a compensator, an angled foregrip, and a buttstock. This is going to add the most control over any other attachments that you can get on this particular weapon, and any battle rifle for that matter. Now, I'm really into tap firing. Any battle rifle, FAL or not, is best used with tap firing. because the thing about battle rifles is they're very powerful. They hit pretty hard. They have good range, but most of them don't exceed a fire rate of about 650 to 700 rounds per minute. This is off the top of my head, but battle rifles are not known to have high rates of fire, which means that in close range engagements, unless you really got the drop on somebody, all things being equal, you both face off each other at the same time, hip firing, whatever, you're most likely going to lose if you're going against somebody who's using a PDW or an assault rifle, or pretty much any weapon that has a higher rate of fire is going to win over you. Now, you might think that having a battle rifle which hits harder but is slightly slower is equal to something that hits a little lighter but is faster, but it just really doesn't really come out that way. Generalizing my gameplay in Battlefield over the past 200 hours in Battlefield Hardline, it just doesn't really come out that way. Now, if you are really good and you're able to have excellent control over your reticle to be always on your enemy's head to land those headshots, then that's a different story. You might likely kill your enemy before they do if you're facing off against them with a battle rifle, but that's just not usually the case, at least not for me. Now, back to the FAL specifically. I really like this weapon. I think it has a lot to offer. You can really control it. It just doesn't have as much upward kick, as much upward recoil as the other weapons do in this class. And you'll see a lot of people running with this weapon in the Enforcer class. And when I look at people that are, for instance, I have become legendary. I'm legendary 1 rank as of this recording, almost to legendary 2. When I see other people high ranking like myself or higher that are running with the FAL, it really tells me that this is a great weapon, that people that have been playing this game for dozens and dozens and dozens of hours really know what the FAL can do compared to the other weapons in the class. You'll see me get some pretty decent kills. The time to kill for the FAL is very short. And I think compared to the other battle rifles in the game, the FAL is probably my favorite. It's just easy to control. I think it just comes down to control. It doesn't hit any harder. It's not any faster.
I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
For the rate of fire that it is, and for how hard it hits, the recoil is the most manageable to me. Now, I think something, and I'll make another video on this, about the H-car, which is basically the BAR, a modern version of that gun, which is a 30-06 round, which is absolutely crazy to think about shooting somebody with a round like that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But anyway, the H-car is fantastic. If it weren't for the rate of fire, I think that weapon would be my absolute favorite. I'll get into that in another time with that video, but as far as medium engagements go, the FAL is, in my opinion, the best battle rifle that you can go for. Obviously, you can't play this if you're playing with the police class, but if you get the weapon license, which requires
I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
I think 1,200 or 1,250 kills with any particular weapon, then you can. And if that's the case, and you're able to get that weapon class with the FAL, by all means, I think you should definitely be running with this if you like the Enforcer class and if you like battle rifles. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be quiet now and let you just watch the video. There's nothing really more to say about the FAL. It's a super weapon and you should give it a try. Give it the due diligence it deserves, and you will be dropping your enemies in no time. If you're more of a short, close-range CQB fighting kind of person, or if you play a lot of team deathmatch on smaller maps, I don't know if this is the best weapon. I really don't. But it definitely has its place. For instance, you see me in these maps that I'm playing on that have a lot more range to them. There's not as many buildings. There's not as many sharp angles, which mean the levels are comprised of many long avenues of lines of sight where medium to long range engagements are conducive to gameplay. Then, gosh, if you're that style of player like I am, please give the FAL a chance. It's really fantastic. Again, I don't think it has cons. I wouldn't call them cons. You just need to know when to use the FAL and when not to. It's not a weapon that you would use in every situation, and not many are, of course, but this one in particular has its place, and when you use it on the right maps and you're in the zone, you will really enjoy this weapon. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.
Right there! Scout chopper right ahead! Boy in blue, right here! We got the guy top. We have the locations. Right here! I got it covered! Cops have a position! Keep him out of there! Come off me!